everyone at their seats. Good. Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to you all. Before we start the meeting, I've just got a few housekeeping announcements as normal. There is no planned fire drill today. Should an alarm sound, a member of staff will direct you to your nearest exit. Please could I check that your mobile phones are switched off or to silent whilst we're in session. And finally, when speaking, could you please ensure that your microphone is turned on and speaking clearly into it? And when you finish speaking, please turn it off because it then silences the next person. Linda, can you just confirm, please, that we are live streaming? It's a yes. So welcome to those that are listening on the radio or whatever it is these days. I'd like to welcome all the members of the public who are here today. Warm welcome to you. It's very important that you're part of the democratic process to be here today. And I'd also welcome a special welcome back to Councillor Graham Cullen. It's really nice to see you back and smiling. So well done. Yeah. And just before into the formalities, item 1 is the apologies for absence. Elaine, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I've received apologies from councillors Billy Brooks, Jimmy Brooks, Stephen Eyre, Martin Foster and James Knowles. I don't know whether the members have any others. No, that's it then. Thank you.
I think Councillor Hesketh as well is apologising. He's away. Item 2, declare disclosure of interest, if there are anything. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Kirk.
Yeah, thank you much. The very last item we have tonight is an exempt item, but I won't be staying in for any discussions that go after that particular paper. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other declarations? No. Okay. Well, the item 3 is just a warning, really, in terms of exclusion of public and press. I don't want to do that, but there are several items within the agenda which are highlighted that we might need to go into a closed session if need be. Some of them are related to minutes of previous meetings, and therefore, hopefully, we won't have to do that, because I don't want to. If indeed some of the ones at the early stage of the meeting are here, we can put those to the end and sort them out if we do go into closed session then. But obviously I don't want to be moving the members of the public backwards and forwards into the meeting. So that's just fair notice on that. And item 4 is the minutes of the council meeting held on the 17th of July 2024. There's open minutes which need proposing and seconding, and exempt minutes as well. That's proposed by Councillor Makinson Sanders. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Arnold. All in favour? Thank you. That is carried. And also the exempt minutes of the meeting as well. Can I have a proposer for those, please? Councillor Marsh and Councillor Martin. All those in favour? That is carried. Thank you very much. And item 5 is the action sheets. Chief.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. All the actions are complete with the exception of one where we're still awaiting a response from the Environment Agency. Thank you.
Okay, that's Councillor Watson's question, I think. Okay. Communications from myself. Yeah, I've had a couple of interesting engagements over the past couple of months since the last meeting. The English Bowling Federation and English Women's Bowling Federation National Championships were held in Skegness at the Sun Castle. And I was there at the final presentations and met some of the chiefs there, which was quite interesting to hear their take on our resort of Skegness. They put a lot of money into Skegness when they're staying there for the week. It's a very important event for them. And long may they continue. They've been going there for 70 years now. I attended the Lincolnshire County Council Chairman's Civic Services dedication. The South Holland District Council Civic Service as well, one of our partners. Thoroughly enjoyed the Mablethorpe Carnival Parade, judging the floats along with the mayor, which is Councillor Arnold this year. I did also attend Councillor Sid Dennis's funeral and represented the council on that. And also last Monday, I was at the House of Lords evening reception for the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, support that we give to local businesses in developing their business, in specifically appertaining to the Fresh Foods Network. A number of our officers were at the reception. It was good to see local businesses supporting them, such as Wilkin Chapman and other organisations who support our area, and also one or two of the pioneers of agricultural engineering who were in the at the reception as well. So a lot of people to meet there. A very useful thing to do. Councillor Terry Taylor, you also attended the Sibsey Lancaster Memorial Trust Remembrance Service in the rain, I think.
Yes.
But well done for that.
Yeah.
And that again, a very, I went to that last year, very dignified and interesting service out in the middle of the open fields in Sibsey. Okay, so item 7 is the questions from the public. Now we have got 3 questions, but we've only got 2 questioners here. And the first one is Mr. Mike Crooks, who's got a question for Councillor Leyland. Would you like to read out your question? And welcome, Mr. Crooks.
Thank you very much. Between 1985 and 1988, NIREX made a report, which I enclosed with my question, evaluating disposal of low-level nuclear waste underground in Thedlethorpe. NIREX also investigated another site in Lincolnshire, in Fulbeck. What was East Lindsey District Council's position on nuclear waste being disposed of in Thedlethorpe during that time, and did it support the investigation? NIREX, it should be noted, has changed its name via Radio Waste Management and is known today as Nuclear Waste Services.
Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the question. As this work was almost 40 years ago, I have been unable to understand the Council's involvement and opinion on that particular matter. I'm afraid I can't be more helpful than that.
Mr. Crooks, have you got a supplementary at this stage?
Yes, I do.
Please carry on.
Does the leader not find it strange that NIREX at that time were rebuffed in 2 areas of Lincolnshire, including Thedlethorpe, for what was no low-level nuclear waste? Now they seem to be back in sheep's clothing, looking to dump even more deadly toxic waste in the area. Nuclear Waste Services Community Partnership has failed. 85% of the residents oppose the dump. Why do you not reject their advances at the outset?
Councillor Leyland.
Mr. Chairman, I have to recognise the situation nationally in respect of nuclear waste storage. There are over 20 sites across the country that store various levels of nuclear waste, from the decommissioned material that comes from power stations to low-level waste, which we've just been talking about. That has to find a solution. The government's solution to that is to engage with communities that have been put themselves forward, and in this case, Lincolnshire County Council, after engaging with Nuclear Waste Services, wanted to pursue this matter. We, as a district council, thought it would be better to be involved in the process than be excluded from it, and that's our involvement. We have made a number of motions in this council, the last one being that we would see the intent and work of Nuclear Waste Services over the next year before making a decision whether we left the process or not. And equally, Lincolnshire County Council have made a statement together with myself as leader of this council that by 2027 there should be a test of public support. And I think we've got to remember in all this that this comes down to the local community making a decision through a test of public support. So ultimately the decision will be for the local community whether this goes ahead or not. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Leyland, for that answer, and thank you, Mr. Crooks. I'm now going to ask Sarah Goodley to come to the desk and ask her question to Councillor Leyland. Ms. Goodley.
Councillor Leyland, as our representative on the Nuclear Waste Services Community Partnership, do you agree with the answer given to the question posed on the Community Partnership's website? How will the partnership regenerate Mablethorpe as a seaside resort when it withers and dies after having a nuclear dump this close? There is no evidence to suggest that Mablethorpe as a seaside resort will be negatively affected should a GDF be developed in this area. However, the Community Partnership will survey the views and visitors of those involved in running the tourist industry over the coming months, and will publish the results to help local people come to a view on this matter. Experience elsewhere suggests that nuclear facilities could benefit rather than damage local tourism. For example, there is no evidence that Sellafield nuclear facility has impacted on tourism in Cumbria, and indeed, while open, the Sellafield Visitor Centre was for many years the most popular visitor attraction in the county. Similarly, the Nuclear Power Station Visitor Centre in Dungeness also proved popular with visitors to the area, and the same could prove to be the case if the GDF and Visitor Centre were built in Mablethorpe.
Thank you for that. Councillor Leyland.
Thank you for the question. The council is part of the community partnership and working with the community to explore the impact of the geological disposal facility. Any plans for the facility will go through the test of public support. The council is aware of both sides of the argument and understand that the experience of similar facilities elsewhere hasn't necessarily been all that negative. But the council remains neutral at this point in time, as much work needs to be undertaken to have a fuller picture before any decision is taken. So we will look to understand the impacts of this potential facility on the issues that you raise. Thank you.
And have you a supplementary?
I have.
Okay, thank you.
Are you aware, Councillor Leyland, of the Radioactive Waste Management Report of 2016, where losses to the economy were reported as 1.7 billion during the lifetime of the project? Or the NWS Tourist Survey in 2023, which shows 16% would not visit? Or the Resident Survey of 2023, of which 74% said they would not visit? Or the NWS survey of 2004, in which 23%, even after 15 minutes discussion, said the GDF would impact their decision to visit? I myself have been surveying visitors with others over the summer, and over 80% said they would stay away. After 4 years, why have you not studied the impact of a GDF on the visitor economy, which is currently worth 800 million per annum?
Councillor Leyland.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the supplementary. The reality is we will have to have an understanding of that, and we have done great work with our Connected Coast Board to know the impact and the value of our tourism industry. We wouldn't want to see anything harm that. So it is in our interest to understand the potential impact, if any, of the GDF, and that work will be done. And the surveys that you talk about will have to be understood by this authority. The reality is, as a local authority, we took a decision to be involved in this process because we felt it was better to be involved than be external to it and just allow Lincolnshire County Council to be the main senior council in this. So we will understand what the impacts potentially could be, but at this point in time, we can't come to a judgment. And equally, all those surveys that you mentioned over a period of time need to be fully understood and interrogated. There is evidence, and I've been on holiday myself with my family to various parts of the country where there have been nuclear facilities nearby. And I have to say, it never entered our mind that this was an issue for us going to visit those areas. So we do need to understand the issues carefully. You're right to highlight the value of the tourist economy to our coast. It's much valued, and it's something that we wouldn't want to see damaged. So it's in our interest to make sure we understand those issues.
Thank you very much, Councillor Leyland. Can I thank you very much to our speakers today. No, I'm afraid there is no more public speaking. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so I'm sorry, but I cannot take any questions. I cannot take any questions from the public. I'm sorry about that. Can I now move on to, there was another question. Excuse me. Will you excuse, will you? No, will you not speak, please? Will you please sit down, or I'll ask you to be removed from the meeting? Okay, I will move on to another question. I'm going to move on to another question that was asked by a member of the public called Carl Davis. He is not here today, but I'm going to read it out in case he was listening on live streaming. Is it council policy to position a public bin in front of someone's private residence without consulting him? This was a question to Councillor Martin Foster. And the answer was, litter bins placed by the district council are on the highway or district council managed land where there has been a need identified. If there is a problem with a particular bin's placement, this can be raised with neighbourhood service via the cleansing team at eastlindsey.gov.uk. So that's just in case Mr. Davis is listening on live stream. Okay, that is the end of the public involvement in this. Can I thank the members of the public for being here, and you're free to go. There will be somebody escorting you out of the building, but you're very welcome to stay if you so wish. Thank you very much. Can I move on to item 8, which is the report of the chairman of the executive board, Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quite an extensive report tonight, and quite a lot of very good news for the council, how we're engaging with public groups and community groups to make sure that the work that they do is supported. I'd like to just, shall I wait for the public to clear, Chairman?
Just a couple of people are disappearing.
Okay. I'll carry on then. Thank you.
Please carry on.
At our last executive meeting, I was delighted to announce with our my executive board colleagues the formation of an ambitious new £10 million investment fund to transform local places in East Lindsey as part of a new plan to boost growth prosperity. The fund will prioritise investment in 4 distinct target areas: community development, promoting the visitor economy, business support, and to boost the attractiveness of the area as well. A key part of the East Lindsey Investment Fund is about making the district's places more welcome through initiatives that help improve cleanliness, safety, promote tidy and attractive shops, and enhance parks and public spaces. These are the main concerns residents regularly raise with us, and we want to address them face on. We believe that this will help attract more people to the Lincolnshire Wolds and our coastal areas, which is vital to our local business and economy. The council is looking to support all communities from east to west and north to south. And it's critical to point out that actually the smallest parish should be able to gain from this, as well as our larger parish and town councils. And we look forward to working with them in this process. Councillor Grist and Councillor Kirk have worked very hard to produce this with officers, and the details are on a presentation that's accessible on the executive agenda pages. So more than happy to share that. This is great news for this council. And I look forward to, as this rolls out, making sure that we support all our communities. I also want to make councillors aware that we received an APSI award. This is the South East Lincolnshire Council's partnership dealing with home energy advice and retrofit team, won the best building and housing initiative at the APSI Service Awards held in Bristol on the 12th of September. So congratulations to our officers with that. Very good news on the Skegness Culture House. Following approval of the planning consent in September, the council has moved quickly to enable the site to start work on a £4.1 million programme of extensions and enhancements to the Embassy Theatre in Skegness. Development management team have done well. Planning officers from the department development management team have been invited by the regional body of the Town Planning Institute to provide professional development at an event in Nottingham Trent University on sustainable water management and new development. This invitation is a recognition of the good practice of the department, and we're very pleased to see that as well. Also very pleased to announce that our wellbeing service, following a competitive tender process, we as a lead authority working with colleagues from other districts have again secured the wellbeing service contract for the further 5 to 10 years. The current service provided since 2018 has been a great success, providing services to allow vulnerable adults to remain safe at home, avoiding the need to access NHS and adult care services. Household Support Fund is a significant welfare fund to help those in the greatest need and on the lowest incomes with the cost of household essentials, food and utility bills. ELDC have fully spent our local allocation of £378,529, available to us under round 5 of the scheme, which ended in September. The government have announced a further allocation of funding for Lincolnshire, but as of yet, no guidance has been published on the requirements and conditions for which councils can use this funding. We continue to work as part of Lincolnshire Financial Inclusion Partnership and the County Household Support Fund Working Group. So ensure any available funds will help those just about managing households and our established community support networks. There's a whole list of events there that I won't go through all, but it's very, very good to see that we're actually making a real difference in our communities' well-being and lives by having these events. Very pleased to see that the second Louth Food and Drinks Festival on the 29th of September went so well. And we look forward to, through the East Lindsey Investment Fund, seeing that actually grow and spread across our district. British Food Fortnight campaign is on various Lincolnshire Wolds satellite sites. High profile article on the Horncastle Shop Local in Lincolnshire Life also included the imminent launch of 20 Horncastle Heritage Trail interpretation boards. So all very good news. And also Lightwaves, a coastal light night to come to Sutton-on-Sea on October the 26th, funded through the NPO. We also have our 2025 Outdoor Festival to run again in May from 2025. And also we're involved in a conservation area appraisals for Horncastle, Wainfleet, Alford and Spilsby. UK Shared Prosperity Fund, you can see the details there of how much this has made a real benefit to our communities. 158 East Lindsey businesses have enrolled on the G4G and A4G programme, all small and micro businesses. 132 growth action plans and specialist growth action plans are being delivered through the Advice for Growth programme. £503,251 awarded in grants to local businesses. And this is going down very well with our residents and businesses. Mr. Chairman, you can see all the things that we're doing as well. We also, ELDC programme is likely to see the vast majority through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, dealing with communities in place, supporting local businesses and people in skills. And you can see the detail of all those things that we've delivered. So a very positive report about our impact on our communities and businesses. And again, to reiterate, we're interested in making the life of all our residents and communities better, from our coastal communities through across to our market towns and the Wolds. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive introduction, Councillor Leyland. I've got 3 questioners so far. Councillor Cunnington.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to thank this council for the SPF funding that they provided to Skegness through the Honda Goldwing Light Parade last weekend. It was a great turnout and the businesses were thankful for it because it took a lot of money to the town out of season. And I do hope this council can try and help keep this event alive, as it also raises money for Skegness and Boston Cancer Macmillan.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ross Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Leyland, for this report. Congratulations to the Heart team and the team responsible for the HUG grants delivery. I think that's fantastic news. Also, congratulations to the Wellbeing Service. I do have a question. Is that contract for 5 or 10 years? It's not really clear. On the Household Support Fund, some councils have already published their plans. Where is ours? You also mentioned teenage markets. These were first introduced in East Lindsey following a market scrutiny that I chaired. And I think that really brings out the importance to us, to members, of doing these scrutinies. Louth Food and Drink Festival happened last week, and I have a question on how attendance varied compared with last year, and how it was promoted as well. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Councillor McNally.
Thank you, Chairman. I've read the presentation regarding the East Lindsey Investment Fund that was sent round and everything else. One of the things that did concern me was the fact that when it says coastal towns, it says villages. It said Mablethorpe, Skegness, Thedlethorpe. It does stretch further north than Thedlethorpe. You know, we've got Saltfleet, North Somercotes. A lot of us. I'm hoping that this is just an error, because when some of these parishes see that, they might not think that they're allowed to apply for any of this funding. So if that can be changed before it's sent out to some of the parishes, that'd be good. And the other thing is, can you tell us the latest situation on the pylons, please?
Okay, Councillor Danny Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to thank the leader for his report. It's very well received. I like the wellbeing service. I think ours in this district is second to none. I just want to say that because they've helped many of our residents. The other thing is the Goldwing event was a very good event, and I do hope that the council will use some of the £10 million to fund it going forward, not to just let it fall by the wayside. I'd also like to remind some councillors that the money that the coast has received in the past was government money, and it was to level us up to the level of the rest of the district. Now we're there, we still deserve to be funded out of the 10 million. Thank you.
Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. Just a little bit of feedback. Thank you for your leader's report. I just wondered if you could let us Mablethorpe councillors know how we could possibly apply to have some of these fantastic events. I know the ones in Skegness and Sutton-on-Sea have been absolutely amazing, and we'd like a share too, please.
Well said for Mablethorpe. Councillor Makinson Sanders.
Craig might need a biro to write down because I've got a number of points. Wellbeing service, really good news, really pleased to hear about that. Household support fund, I can't thank you enough for the people of Louth District, because not only have we been able to provide them with gas and electricity through the key card system, but in the summer they funds supported Louth Chef, which I ran, and we provided during August over 500 meals to kids in Louth, young carers in Louth District, and I'm pleased to say through working with the families, we were able to give them other help and support, you know, like getting cookers, like getting clothes, school uniforms, and all sorts of things. It was a huge success, and without money from the household fund, which went to Norma at Rugby Chef, I don't think wouldn't have been able to achieve what we did achieve. But so thank you very much indeed. We're very, very grateful. British Food Fortnight, I see, it was publicised on the Love Lincolnshire Wolds website. So I was a bit surprised to see an advert for Sutton-on-Sea. Perhaps I've missed something about global warming. I don't really know how on earth it's on the Wolds site, but never mind. Conservation area appraisals. I can't miss the opportunity to once again remind this council that Louth Town Centre for many, many, many years has been classed as at risk. It still hasn't been addressed, and it's getting worse, unfortunately. And finally, I did find the development management team bit quite difficult to understand. I don't like lots of acronyms, but I was, however, glad to see that SUDs have been incorporated in new developments, because I understood that SUDs were now incorporated with reform. Perhaps you'll be able to tell me that.
Good one. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the report. And I wondered if you could clarify whether the home energy advice and retrofit team, how long that will be going on for, how long will that funding be going on for? And the other thing I wondered if you were in a position to comment on is, will small business rate relief and rural business rate relief, is that likely to end at the end of this financial year in March 2025? And will businesses of that ilk have to be preparing themselves for this amount to find this amount of money?
That will depend on rate.
Thank you.
Thank you. No more speakers now. Councillor Leyland. A lot of questions there, I'm afraid.
I'm going to have to try and read my own handwriting. Looks like a doctor's prescription. Right, Councillor Cunnington, really appreciative of your kind words. We are part of this investment fund is looking at events, and so that this probably covers quite a few of the questions that have been raised. These bring great vitality to communities, good for business. Everyone enjoys them, so I'm pleased it went so well, and that's something that we do need to carry on with. Councillor Jackson, appreciate your good comments about the wellbeing service and the household support fund and claiming credit for the teenage markets. I'm quite happy for you to do that if they're successful. And in respect of the Louth Food and Drink Festival, my understanding is, unfortunately, I couldn't be there. It was my intention to attend. But my understanding is that attendance was similar, if not slightly higher than last year. But the team are still looking at those numbers to make sure that there's an accurate assessment of how it went. But my understanding was it was a very, very good event. And I think the weather held out reasonably well as well. Councillor McNally, your point's well made. I think it's always been the intention that the fund would be for all communities across our great district. We have a very diverse place with various communities along the coast and our market towns and in the Wolds. And the intention is this is aimed at the smallest parish to the largest town council as well. But I will make sure that that's clarified so that parishes understand that and would feel free to apply. And I had reason to, my own business, do evaluation, and I had to drive through along that lovely road from Salt through North Simcoe. So it was a very pleasant drive. In respect of pylons, let me just get you the latest on that, just 2 seconds. I had a message from Head of Planning. So where we are with that, and obviously we are engaged with our colleagues at County Council and other councils that are involved in the raising concern about the pylons. They are in process at the moment. The National Grid consultation was January, one of them was January to March of this year. They sought technical agreement in respect of their, from the planning inspectors in respect of the scope of their forthcoming environmental statement, and that's happened in August. So that's ongoing. And the current timetable for the next stage of public consultation is mid-2025. And you're probably aware of South Holland Council, where they've made a statement of their intent to recognise the fenland as a particular asset in terms of food production. And there is work ongoing, I believe, with my portfolio holder. Where is he? Councillor Ashton. Oh, there we go. In the park. How could I miss him? In respect of actually trying to understand if there's any potential across all 3 districts that we could have some designation for those very vulnerable areas. So that's the process at the moment, but again, working very closely with county colleagues as well and the others involved in this concerning potential development. In respect of planning, while you've asked the question, we are actually going to be employing a specialist planning officer to deal with the national strategic infrastructure projects, because they are of such a concern at the moment, because we are faced with many large applications, not just in terms of the National Grid one, but in terms of the large solar panel farms and potential onshore development. So going back to questions, Councillor Brooks, thank you for your comments on the wellbeing service and the event, the Goldwing event. The reality is that this is going to be, again, something that we want to see encouraged across all our communities, these events, that, as I said earlier, make a real difference. And just in terms of your comments about the Levelling Up programme, you're absolutely right. It was a government initiative, but we recognise that actually that had very specific agenda and direction of travel to meet certain challenges. What we're doing is making sure that we're spreading the joy to all communities, and it's absolutely right that that should be spread to communities that have probably gained some benefit from the Levelling Up. Councillor Arnold, thank you for your comments in respect of the events, and again, we are committed to making sure that these things keep happening, because I know how successful they've been, and I've even seen the videos of some councillors dancing, which probably shouldn't be re-shown anywhere, but it just shows you, how you can lose yourself when you're having a good time. That's fine. Yeah, whatever you need to do, that's fine. Councillor Mackintosh-Sanders, again, thank you for the comments. Just in respect of the conservation area, one of the things that we do want to see in this investment fund is potentially working to create shopfront grants so that there can be improvement in those in a sort of market town presentation and place. That's critically important. But that's something in terms of the conservation area appraisal that I know officers can work with English Heritage to make happen, as they've happened elsewhere within the district. Councillor Simpson, you're asking about the Hugs retrofit. I can get you the detail of that. I'm quite happy to supply that to you. In respect of your question about small business rate relief, that is a big question. There are a number of things up in the air at the moment with the current government that potentially will change and potentially could have very damaging effect on local business. And there are a number of things as well that could affect how we deal with things as a council in terms of our council tax and what we spend it on and where we're pushed to spend it on. So that's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, and thank you for the questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Leyland, for the answers on that one. We're moving on now to item 9, which is the 24-25 Q1 finance update. Councillor Tom Kemp is now the portfolio holder for finance to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'll attempt to be brief, as I am sure you've all read the report and taken away the news from it, but there's a few things I want to make highlight of. As the members are aware, throughout the year, quarterly monitoring reports are completed forecasting the expected year-end outturn compared to the approved budget. This report provides information on the forecast full-year financial performance as at 30th of June 2024. I will now briefly talk through a few areas of interest. The revenue outturn forecast positive position of £660,000 surplus at the year end. Some key issues I would like to bring to the council's attention are as follows. The pay rise has not yet been settled. The budget includes an allowance of 3.5%, but this obviously remains a question that is not yet resolved. Income pressures as a result of the economic downturn are forecast as a combined pressure of £146,000. Service overspends continue to be reviewed and closely monitored. And due to good cash management, the higher balances, investment income is providing additional income of just over £1 million. As members will be aware, the 24-25 budget includes a savings efficiency target of 1.496 million, and you will note that the full efficiency target of that is now expected to be met. Capital. For capital, Table 4 provides details of all capital schemes. The proposed revised capital budget as at Q1 for the general fund is 76.9 million, including slippage of circa 20 million being proposed from 23-24. Changes to the capital programme are also being tracked, with approximately 1.8 million identified and detailed in Table 4B. Slippage continues to be carefully monitored and considered, and budgets refined as we progress through the financial year. I therefore propose that the Council approves the recommendations as set out in the report. The recommendations are that full Council amend the capital programme for 24-25 as shown in Appendix A, Table 4, to take into account the changes proposed. I'm happy to answer any questions, but any, okay. Oh, and any technical matters that I don't have the answer to straight away, I will forward to colleagues to get you a detailed answer. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, councillor Kemp. Was that? Right, I'm sorry, but there are no questions from the public, okay? There's no questions from the public. If I have to remove you, I will do. So please sit down, listen to the debate. You are destroying democracy if you do this. Thank you. Right. Councillor Leyland, were you seconding the motion?
Yes, Chairman, thank
proposal?
you. Yeah, happy to second the motion.
Okay, questions from councillors, please. Councillor Leonard.
Thank you. I'd just really like to ask the question about page 47, markets. Comments impact by poor weather during things. I mean, stallholders in Louth were basically rung up the markets here to speak to them about when we had all those high winds, and were basically told, cough up, put up and shut up. Is that any way to run a financial generating market?
Okay, goodbye. They're going now. Thank you.
So the question is really, given the comment there, is that some way of boosting the revenue by almost bullying members, stallholders, regular stallholders I refer to, into paying up, even though they were advised by the National Markets Association that actually it wasn't fit enough to go out and hold a stall on a market, and the fact that their insurance didn't cover them. So is that the way of with this council is boosting its revenue on markets? Thank you.
Okay, any more questions, please? Sorry about the interruptions. Okay, no further questions. No, councillor Makinson Sanders.
I'm a bit perturbed because every meeting I go to, we talk about capacity, but then I see in here how pleased we are when some departments appear to be losing members of staff to save money. And a lot of us councillors do have issues with capacity, and I'm getting a mixed message about it all. So perhaps Councillor Kemp can straighten me out.
Right, no more. Right, councillor Kemp.
Oh, thank you very much for those questions. Councillor Leonard, with regard to the markets, I'm not quite sure of the categorisation that you've levelled there. I'll certainly look into it for you. But it seems concerning, but I suspect there might be more to it. So I'll leave that to me. Councillor Makinson Sanders, with regard to staffing capacity, I think there are issues in certain departments one way and the other. And I think that's the reality of the situation. So, you know, obviously in regard to finance, we are aware of that. We are making strides. But in other areas, of course, it's part of the efficiency savings we're looking into. So, yes, I take on board your comments and we'll certainly look into it and hopefully get you some more information as it develops. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So it's been proposed and seconded. A vote is required for this. And the recommendation is on page 39 that the full council agrees to full council amending the capital programme for 24-25 as shown on Appendix A, which is on page 48 of your agenda.
Mr. Chairman, it does actually say on here that the recommendation is that the executive board approves the amendments to the capital programme. Nobody's bothered to amend that, and it appears on a number of pages on the recommendations. And I just think if we're putting stuff out into the public domain, somebody ought to pick that up and not do that. I can see one at the bottom of page 51, and it recommendation quite clearly states that the executive board approves the amendments to the capital programme, and it's repeated on other pages as well.
Can we just clarify that, please, in the minutes of the meeting, that we are actually full council that is approving this? That is the point, really, that you're making, that it's full council that agrees to amend the capital programme. Councillor Kemp?
Yeah, it's obviously a typographical error. I suspect it's a hangover from when it went to executive board. Quite happy for any reading of that to read full council.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so all those in favour, please. And anyone against that? No, that has been passed and carried. Thank you very much. And so the next item is item 10, which is the South and East Lincolnshire Council's partnership performance report, which is on pages 59 to 70 of your agenda sheets. Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just ask if you're happy for me to remain seated as I need
Yes,
to page
please
through my
do.
notes? I can't do it standing up.
Yep, please do.
Thank you very much. So you have the report before you. This is to note, it's for information, and it is something that makes quite good and interesting reading. So alignment and delivery plan goes across and is monitored by the joint strategy board of the three councils, and it's to support the partnership in delivering its priorities as well as our sovereign council ambitions. And in the report, it outlines our saving profile and how that is going. And then it goes on to an update of our peer challenge update, which is very clearly then. And we did actually welcome that peer challenge. And of course, this council has a peer challenge coming up in mid-November. It then outlines how the growth and prosperity priority partnership is working, the priority partnerships that we have across the three councils, each with an area of focus and all to the benefit of our residents and businesses. And of course, I'm just highlighting at 4.35 on page 65, how we're working across our councils for the cost of living support and all those benefits that we do bring to our residents. Safer communities priority partnership is also important, and as well as our environment priority partnership. There's not really an awful lot more I can add, Mr. Chairman. It is for noting, it is quite an interesting read, and it just shows the progress that we're making as a partnership to deliver on the aspirations that we've identified in our corporate plans. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Leyland. So are there any questions in relation to this? It's noted. Councillor Leonard.
Thank you. As usual, like a magnet, I'm normally drawn to the word Louth, but I didn't seem to notice it in the report, the largest market town in East Lindsey. Perhaps you could assist me.
You didn't mention Louth in your report, Councillor Leyland. Okay. Largest market town in East Lindsey. Any other questions, comments, please? Okay, Councillor Leyland, if you'd like to just address that specific issue.
I think I should stand up for this, Mr. Chairman. I'm quite happy to recognise Louth as a significant market town in East Lindsey, and anytime you should be worried about its status and size, do give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so in all seriousness, is this report noted by the council? Noted. Thank you very much indeed. So that's item 10. We're now moving on to item 11, which is the notice on motions on notice. To receive motions on notice under Council Procedure Rule 12. And there's a motion from Councillors McNally and Carl Macy, other way round probably. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and I will take the motion as read and add I would like to thank Councillors Mackinson Saunders, Simpson and the East Lindsey Group for their endorsement of this motion, which both Councillor McNally and I feel is incredibly important. It is very clear that this Labour government are intent on hitting some of the most vulnerable elderly residents by taking away what is often a lifeline through the coldest of months. This decision can only be classed as crude, cruel and blunt, with many now having to decide whether to heat or eat. It is very concerning that the Labour government haven't even bothered to carry out an impact assessment to see how many of our elderly and vulnerable this will affect, and in all likelihood, how many may now even possibly pass away because of it. Nor do they appear to have considered the detrimental impact this will, of course, be on our NHS and our social care systems. This really is a shameful decision which Labour have tried to justify by talking about a black hole that has never actually existed. If it did, then how could the country afford to settle huge inflation busting pay with their trade union friends and paymasters? We therefore ask that this council continue to promote the uptake of the pension credit benefit through council services, partnerships, charities and community organisations. We need to make sure our most vulnerable pensioners are supported in claiming their entitlement. Secondly, to support our residents across the district, this council should register its strong disapproval with the government and members of parliament for taking away the winter fuel payment. It fails to acknowledge the plight of those now discriminated against who do not qualify within the threshold for support and yet fall below the income level of those who do not need the payment. Many of our rural residents, unlike their metropolitan cousins, do not have the luxury of having a gas supply to their homes, and in the case of oil, wood, LPG and solid fuel, must pay upfront prior for delivery of their winter fuel. Finding a large sum to cover this cost can and does force people into dire straits. The unintended consequences have not all been identified or even been considered. And finally, that we commit to signing the Save the Winter Fuel Payment for Struggling Pensioners petition being run by Age UK, and write to all members offering them the opportunity to sign the petition themselves. I do hope this council will support us in this motion, and now I move this. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Macy. Is that seconded?
Thank you, Chairman. I will second the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Okay, we are now speaking. I've got Councillor Bristow first, and then Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In looking at this, I would like to say that I wholeheartedly agree with it. And I do think that the decision taken in Westminster was abrupt. I am very disappointed to hear how politicized my colleague's proposal was. And I think it's very, very disappointing that it's been politicized to that extent when this is an issue that affects humans, regardless of whether they wear a red or a blue rosette. So can we just remember this is about human beings, not about whether somebody votes Tory or Labour. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. I would like to propose an amendment to the motion, and you see that table before you. Would you like me to read it out first?
Got it? Everyone got that?
Okay. The reason that we want to bring this amendment is because this motion is weak. We propose actions that sit within ELDC's control to make a real difference to pensioners in fuel poverty. The actions that you've brought in this motion, well, they won't, or at least they won't on their own. We have in East Lindsey a £10 million East Lindsey investment fund, and not a penny of that at the moment is allocated to improving pensioners' energy efficiency. If you really care about people, the people that have been identified in this motion, then you'll vote for this amendment. If you're just here to do some political point scoring, then you won't. And I'll be specific. Our amendment is to remove paragraph 4, which is the bullet point 2, which has all of the really quite partisan messages in there, which, you know, and to replace it with to urge government to revise the threshold for qualifying for credit benefits to enable more lower income pensioners to receive the winter fuel allowance, to request the Executive Board to consider adding a 5th target area to the £10 million East Lindsey Investment Fund, targeting help for vulnerable households in fuel poverty to increase the energy efficiency of homes rated D to G, and to request the Executive Board to consider ensuring funds from the Household Support Fund also help households and residents in fuel poverty who may not be in receipt of benefits who miss out by a small amount, and publicising this information in ways accessible to pensioners with disabilities. Just to go back to those points. This happened last year. The cost of living crisis hit, and this left lots of households across the country, but in our area as well, cold. Retrofit, insulation and energy efficiency are the only ways to invest in a long-term solution so that you're not coming back year after year with the same issue. Hug 1 saved families an average of £693 on average per year. The LAD 3 scheme saved them £521.40 per year. The Heart team reached 3,780 residents in East Lindsey last year, but the need is intense and it's oversubscribed. It's always oversubscribed. Politics is about hard choices, and the Tories left the country with a £22 billion hole. The Chancellor had to act, and she had to act to protect every mortgage holder, every renter, and by extension, all of us from runaway inflation.
Hello.
It's hypocritical for us in this chamber to insist national government spend between 7 million and 10.8 million restoring the winter fuel allowance just in this area, just in East Lindsey, without being prepared to invest ourselves. If we're not going to put our money where our mouths are, you know, what is the point of standing for things? You have to make a choice, whether that's an easy choice or not. We need to boost also the Household Support Fund by promoting it to disabled people in ways that they can access.
30 seconds.
Not only online ones, reaching out to community groups. And this is a key part of the plan for reaching those who are just beyond benefit thresholds. And that is why Labour restored that fund. The second bullet point is partisan and it's inaccurate. So we have simplified it. I move the amendment.
Is that amendment seconded? Councillor Hall seconded it. Okay, so we've got one person, Councillor Brooks, Danny Brooks, who wanted to speak on the motion. So I'm holding on that one because we're now speaking about the amendment. I've got a list of speakers. Does anyone else want to go on that list? Councillor Gray and Councillor Makinson Sanders, and we've got Councillor Cunnington anyway, and Councillor Danny Brooks. Councillor Cunnington.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, to start with, I'd like to support Councillor Bristow's comments that this motion and the amendment now have got political, and I think we need to drop it in this room. We're looking at our residents, our vulnerable people, and the people in our towns and villages. It's all right going politics, but let's drop the politics so much. I can't support the motion amendment because it's saying about using money from the East Lindsey Investment Fund. We've already spoke earlier on in an agenda item about the Heart team and the work they provide and the money they've got to provide to our residents. If we actually go out and find our residents and tell them this fund's there, then they can get the support and they do use it. It's about us connecting with our residents to tell them the support is already in place. We don't need to find any more money for them until Councillor Leyland turns around and says to us, oh, the Heart team have got no more money, then we need to look and find where we can get some more money from. Then we might look at the investment fund. But as far as I'm aware, we've still got money to spend on regenerating houses, making them better, making them safer, more efficient and everything. So unfortunately, I can't support the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Chairman. I certainly won't be supporting the amendment either. Couple of observations, and I want to talk about my particular ward. Firstly, before the general election, we heard a lot of rhetoric from the new government, as they were in waiting at that point, that the winter fuel payment wasn't going to be removed. Keir Starmer made an absolute commitment. So the decision to remove it is a political decision. It's nothing else. They are the government. They have made a political decision to remove it, and they have made a political decision
to pay the union paymasters whatever they required. That is politics. That's what they've chosen. It's their choice. They have chosen to remove this, and they have chosen to harm, I would consider, some of my most elderly and vulnerable residents. Now, I have about 400 people in my ward who live in old traditional trailer parks. These are permanent residents for them. These places need a lot of gas in the winter to heat them and keep them warm. Gas they have to pay for in cash before they can use it. They spend probably £200 a week in cold weather just heating and eating. And if you're a single person on a pension, where's the money coming from? That's what the winter fuel payment did to help them. So I've got to say, there are many people, not just in my ward, but I'm sure in other parts of the district, not just on the coast, but inland, who live in disconnected properties using LPG or logs or coal or whatever, that they have a real problem. And winter fuel money was actually the bit in the jar that if you get really cold weather, they could dip into, knowing that they were going to be able to look after themselves, knowing they're going to be able to pick up the phone and get that extra energy and to keep them warm. Removing it is a disaster for those people, quite honestly. And whilst I'm fully in support of Councillor Macy's motion, I think we need to all recognise in this room, many people who have moved here to retire here have done so, and they recognise that they do not get the level of services you get in urban areas, yet they pay a higher council tax in Ingermells for a banded property than they do in the leafy suburbs of Islington, where most of these people live. Can that be right? It can't be right, quite clearly. So let me make it clear. We have a lot of work to do as a council, not just here at East Lindsey, but across the county, in making sure our elderly and vulnerable get all the help and support they need. So on that basis, I urge everyone to support Councillor Macy's motion. And I think members need to reflect. All decisions are political.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Graham Marsh.
I think, Chairman, I'll withdraw because most of what I've said has already been said, not wishing to extend the time out.
Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm afraid we can't support this, and I can't support this amendment. The word hypocritical has been used, and you pointed out that bullet point 2 was very a politicised statement. It's quite ironic, really, that the Independents wrote that, not the Conservatives. And the fact that this is being brought here, we know the work that this council does to support our most vulnerable residents. It is this administration, this Conservative administration, albeit a minority one, that actually has driven the care for our most vulnerable. We are not afraid to deal with that and deal with that head on. As Councillor Davey highlights, we have, I think the number is about 40,000 residents will be affected by this. And it is something that we've been made very aware of, is the access and the information about the pension credit and all the other benefits that are out there. Our officers do a superb job in making our residents aware of those benefits that they should be applying for. So again, I can't support this motion. We will be writing to the government ourselves, as it states in the motion, that we should be making our strong disapproval with the government and members of Parliament for taking away this winter fuel payment. It is a poor decision. It is only a decision that will lead to other decisions about how we fund government decisions to cut our income as local government. And if you think the lifting of the cap on council tax is going to be good news, actually what that means is we will get the blame for everything, and we will have to sort out all the issues. And no, it's not a point of order.
No, please allow.
I think I've got 5 minutes. I've got a few minutes left.
Yeah.
The reality is we need to be careful with our monies, and we do a lot for our communities. The £10 million investment fund does include a community aspect to it, which we know will go to support town hall, village and parish halls. We do a lot of support for inclusion in disparate communities, and I'm sure Councillor Gray has much more detail than I have on how we support our most vulnerable residents. So for many reasons, we can't support this amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Sadly, whilst I recognise the sentiment, I can't actually support this. And the reason behind that, you talk about dig into the £10 million to help vulnerable households in fuel poverty to increase energy efficiency of homes, right? The reality is that energy efficiency grants applicable to dwellings very rarely dish up the 100%. So the poor individual still has to have a wedge of money in order to qualify to get some of this energy efficient grant implemented. He still needs a wedge of money to actually finish the job off. And the reality is a lot of houses simply cannot be made any energy efficient anytime quickly. The winter time is here, it's here now, and folks are getting cold. And I already have people in my area who are wondering where they're going to get the money from to fill the tank up with oil and get the gas cylinders, etc., etc. And the decision could be taken by government to wind the clock back is virtually an instant decision and puts the ball back firmly into the court of the government. This position, then, if we persist with this position with this removal of the with this grant, it then puts a burden on the district councils to pick up the pieces, to sort out the people who've got problems, and that is a cost. It's a time cost. It takes days and weeks. Meanwhile, I'm getting bloody cold, right? And you know, it just really doesn't stack up. And the clear message needs to go back to government to actually undo what was a bit of a, well, we won't even go there. It just needs unwinding, accepting that they've made a mistake and move on. They've done themselves absolutely no favours. And if they have 5 years in now, they certainly won't get another 5 years in, because folks will remember when they've been shivering.
Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I felt I just had to say something. As you all know, I'm an older person's champion. My portfolio includes better ageing, of course. So therefore, how could I possibly support such a preposterous amendment? Let's remember that pension credit is administered by DWP and it's notoriously underclaimed benefit. And by removing the winter fuel allowance, sadly, many of our residents will suffer unnecessarily. There are nearly 10,000 low-income households in East Lindsey who are currently in receipt of pension credit, but many more are eligible. In 2022-23, over 40,000 East Lindsey residents received winter fuel benefit. Now many of them will not receive that winter fuel benefit, so how will they cope? This council is an age-friendly district, as we all know. We're recognised by the World Health Organisation, the Centre for Ageing Better, for the excellent work we do. We use our own funding to fund an age-friendly communities officer. She raises awareness at all times with regard to encouraging people to take up pension credits, working with stakeholders, giving advice, etc. We continue to work closely with Links Digital, and they are raising awareness of pension credit and wider community support through our successful digital inclusion droppings, including bespoke pension credit eligibility checking sessions. East Lindsey continue to work through all of our age-friendly work. We have age-friendly ambassadors, over 25 of them, age-friendly newsletters, age-friendly businesses, age-friendly forum, friendship groups. I could go on. Considerable support and funding is being afforded to the most vulnerable older people in our district through the excellent work of my colleague Councillor Devereux behind me. And indeed, this was highlighted in the leaders' report. We've got the Lincolnshire Financial Inclusion Partnership, of which we are a key member. Roxanne Warwick, you'll all know our colleague, is a leading light within that. This council is the core funder of Citizens Advice Lindsey that helps our older people. They have an excellent web page giving lots of details. So we're doing considerable work to support our older residents. And I go so far to say that we are a blueprint service. We're recognised as such. I've been invited to go to the LGA just to talk about this subject, the great work that we're doing to support older people. We will continue to ensure that older people residents live a healthier and longer later life, because we are an excellent council at looking after our older residents.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Councillor Makinson-Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the Labour Party for completely wiping out what Councillor Simpson and I put forward in this motion. And I'd just like to reassure you that as independents, we stress that we're community minded in all our decisions and working in the best interests of our residents. So I'm really annoyed that you should knock out the bit that we say and accuse us of being political. We were doing it for our residents. And I think your third bullet point, request the executive board to consider ensuring funds from the Household Support Fund also help households and residents in fuel poverty. I have one of the charities I run, I have been looking after, I probably had upwards of £6,000 to give out to disabled people, poor families, really struggling people in Loutham district. I know we're doing that already. Don't tell the council to do what they're doing. I'm doing it efficiently and well already. And I know recipients of this who come and thank me day after day after day. So we won't have that. I can't support this because you've got it all wrong, I'm afraid. And I'm not having excuses for a government that is taking out on old people.
Thank you. Councillor Danny Brooks, you are speaking to the amendment on this one.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, I can't really support the amendment because the £10 million fund is for events and to uplift the community, not to help people, which the government should be doing, not us.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. I don't really know whether I'm disappointed or elated to see the animation in this room. For 14 years, I've never seen so many councillors bounce up and down about what's been going on at central government. When we were opening our first food banks in East Lindsey, we did nothing. We didn't write to the government and lobby. We took our food to that food larder and people bragged about it. When we have to provide food for school children during the holidays, we didn't write to the government then either. And it is grandstanding. It is, sorry, Councillor Makinson Saunders, I didn't interrupt you. I would appreciate the same. I know some of you think this is grandstanding, but this is people's lives. We as a Labour group have already written to the Chancellor to lobby. We aren't waiting to show off in a chamber full of people. We've put our money where our mouth is, and we've written and lobbied and said that the pension credit threshold should be lowered so more people can apply. We've done that. We aren't waiting to come here to feel big in a grandstanding motion. It's disgusting. It is about choice, and you're right. I'm having the choice to stand up for my residents, and I do agree that some of our residents are going to struggle. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to sit here and make it a party political broadcast like you started us off with.
Thank you. Councillor Dawson and then Councillor Dave Hall. It's the last speakers I've got on the amendment.
Thank you, Chair. I rise to support this amendment, and the reason is that one of the reasons is that the first point in the amendment is to urge government to revise the threshold for qualifying for credit benefits. So let it not be assumed that this amendment does not recognise responsibility on the part of national government. We who support this amendment recognise that. What I'm disappointed about, and I echo the concerns of my colleagues, Councillor Jackson and Councillor Arnold, is the extent to which this has been politicised by several councillors in this chamber. And I want to instead echo and support the comments of, I believe, if I'm correct, Councillor Cunnington and Councillor Bristow, amongst others, who have said much the same, that this is not something that should be being debated by us in terms of national politics. It should be being debated by us in terms of the interests of our residents, independently and separately from the national issues that several councillors have sought to make in a persuasive way, because I think that is inappropriate. I don't think that's what this chamber should be doing. And I'm very disappointed to see the extent to which several councillors have done so. So I support this amendment for those reasons.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dave Ball.
Pretty sure majority of the comments I was going to be making have been made by my colleagues, but I am very disappointed in this council who cannot see why we shouldn't make this as political as it seems to have been put out to be. This is about our residents. We have been supporting them. Councillor Jackson and myself in 2016 were paying for school meals. So we didn't make an issue of this. To make this amendment to be overly politicised is an absolute nonsense, and you should be ashamed of yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, you've got a right to reply.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Councillor Cunnington, you say you can't support using the East Lindsey Investment Fund because support is already in place and the Heart team is enough. Well, the Heart team and Sarah Baker's team have told me that, you know, that that there is always scope for more. There's always the need there for retrofitting homes, for improving people's energy efficiency is huge, and it's always going to be huge. Councillor Davey, it has been your decision to make this political, talking about union paymasters and everything. I have tried to take the politics out of this motion, but unfortunately you insist. Councillor Leyland, again, you know, you've added the politics in. The 10 million investment fund, well, you know, you have a choice there. It's a choice that you can make, and it's a choice that you can make which will actually make a difference. Councillor Simpson, you do make some good points about the energy efficiency grants. However, if we use the money from the East Lindsey Investment Fund to an extent, I'm not saying spend it all, you know, it's about balancing these needs of our residents, we can set the criteria. And, you know, so we don't have to rely on what the government is saying. You're also saying that the government could make an instant decision about what happens. One of the reasons that we are faced with this is because the government had to make a decision in year. And there are very few ways that this kind of money could be saved in year. So, you know, it is worth our while making representations, and I have already made representations in good time before the budget, which will be on 30th of October. But, you know, the Chancellor's hands are tied by that £22 billion black hole, which doesn't go away.
Quiet.
Councillor Gray, you've mentioned that we already do lots. But if what we do, if the great amount that we do in this is enough, then why even have the motion? I think we all recognise that there's more to do. And I've suggested ways that we can do more through this amendment. Councillor Makinson Sanders, you're very upset about the bits that I've taken out because they're too political, but it just so happens that even though you are indie, the things you say are often very political. Councillor Brooks, I understand that £10 million for events is something that you're reluctant in Skegness to lose, but at the same time, politics is about choices, and in this chamber we do have a difficult choice. Thank you for my colleagues on the Labour group for your support for this amendment. And I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. I did indicate that councillor Macy doesn't wish to respond to it, so we now take the vote on the amendment. The amendment is in front of you, and basically it is to remove paragraph 4, bullet point 2, and replace with the words that are on this sheet. So all those in favour of the amendment, please show. And all those against. I think that's the majority, so the amendment is lost. And we go back to the original motion, and there's one speaker on that, councillor Danny Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. The motion as it's written, it's been made political, but I don't mind because they're not blaming SUDS this time. But I support the motion. I think the government brought this in haste. They shouldn't have done. They tell us that the living wage is £20,000, but a pensioner on 12,000 is going to lose a benefit that's going to give them heating. So I just think it's ill thought out what they have done. They need to readjust it. I did like the urge of the government to revise the threshold, and that's what they need to do. Some people don't need the winter fuel payment, but there's a lot of people that need it that aren't going to get it. So this is the reason I support this motion. And they didn't blame me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Ashton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm more than happy to support the substantive motion and highly delighted that Labour's little attempt to get East Lincoln to pay for their mistake at a national level has been voted down so emphatically by this chamber. Perish the thought that us as democratically elected district councillors might engage in a spot of politics at a council meeting. Perish the thought of that, Mr. Chairman. All I would say is that having, over the last few years, grown accustomed to having to defend the occasionally bizarre decisions of our political betters in Westminster, my advice to our Labour friends across the chamber is it could be a very long period of time that you've got ahead of you, and a degree of good humour and good wit will get us all through this process a lot less painfully. I genuinely support the motion that we've got here on notice. We went into a general election relatively recently, and none of this was put in front of the public. I can understand the shock that comes to so many of our residents when they've planned their household budgets in such a way to have this land on them with absolutely no notice. And I'm grateful of the collaboration across the most part of the chamber in putting together this motion and to crafting it in the way that it is before us. So hopefully it will go forward with a unanimous show of support across the chamber, as I am sure our Labour colleagues opposite must deep down in their heart and their conscience be as appalled at the decision of their government as I might have been at some of the decisions of the last one.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. Councillor Makinson Sanders.
Thank you. Well, we're, as an independent group, like I said, we were here to support our residents, not coming to make political statements as we are accused. And who knows whether we've written to the government about anything, because I don't have you on my CC list. But those we are sticking up for our residents who live in rural areas, because they don't enjoy the benefit of a gas supply for a start. You can pay for your gas by direct debit. If you have oil, and many people do have oil tanks living in the countryside. There's one who lives actually behind me in Louth, and she has to have oil because she hasn't got a gas supply. You have to pay up front for your oil. You can't have it on the direct debit unless you're extremely lucky. And you have to have that money in place to pay for it. Otherwise, you're going to be even more cold, despite the fact you're putting lamb's wool up your walls and all the rest of whatever you might be able to do in 6 months or a year's time. And I do think that bureaucrats sitting in comfy offices in Westminster do forget that rural people do face different challenges. And sadly, the Trussell Trust, who talk about all sorts of things that hit the poorer, more vulnerable people. They stated today that 89% of the older generation will actually face the loss of this valuable annual help towards the cost of heating their homes. Now, remember that 29% of our residents here are in the older age group. So this is an extremely serious issue facing us in this district. We know already we've got health challenges, and that's just going to make them even worse. As we sat at health scrutiny today, we know how difficult it is trying to provide stuff in the east of the county in particular. Other people living in the countryside and in towns use this money to stock up on wood or to stock up on coal. You know, people facing the cost of living crisis don't have that money to suddenly put up front to buy these things when they're cheaper in the summer or whenever. And, you know, we have got to look after our vulnerable people. We're not, and it is, I suppose, political, because we should all be caring for people and in a political sort of way. Surely that's what we're here to make the world a better place. Taking this away, you could actually have taxed it, which would have brought some of the revenue back into the country. So, you know, there are other ways of dealing with it, because I know that they don't means test it because it costs too much to means test. There are other ways of saving money, and I think Rachel Reeves could have actually looked a little bit longer and a little bit harder and stopped worrying about not liking shopping and, you know, got on and spent more time thinking about the residents of rural Lincolnshire and all the other rural counties in the country, because we are the ones that will suffer, not the people living in the cities so much. It's the rural people we should be caring about.
Thank you. Councillor Kirk.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of observations, if I may. Firstly, I'm delighted that councillors from the Labour Party have had to write to the Labour government saying what a mess they've made in their first 100 days in power to try and resolve the issue that they find themselves in. And I totally agree with that, Councillor Ashton. It's going to be difficult for them because I think this is possibly one of many. We've made plenty as Conservatives, and I'm sure Labour will do just the same, because that's the way that politics works. And by the way, the 21 billion has been fact-checked twice, even by the left-biting BBC, and found to be nonsense. That actually those who were in the shadow role were in fact shadowing the Treasury, so they knew what money was committed. And actually, this new money they've committed was their choice, a political choice. I was actually going to congratulate Councillors Macy and Nally for the excellent motion. Particularly, I really liked the second bullet point. I thought it was really well worded, and certainly something living in a town, I hadn't thought about those people who have to pay up front for their fuel. It's quite right. So I think it's superb. I don't think it's political. It's a statement of fact. If you pay up front for your fuel and you've got no money, what do you pay it with? I think this is an excellent motion. It is a shame, I agree, that it has to be brought here, but it also is such a huge shame that so many of our vulnerable residents, bearing in mind the number along the coast who sadly appear on the deprivation indices, and fuel poverty is one of those issues. It is really a shame that our colleagues from the Labour Party, I feel, will not be supporting this motion, because they should, because it's looking after the most vulnerable, which is surely what two-tier free gear Keir Starmer said he should be doing. Obviously, they don't think that way anymore.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. I can't support the motion in full. I do agree, and we all have agreed, that there needs to be a challenge on the pension credit, but that's as far as it goes. I do, however, want to thank all these members who have been suffering from mistakes from their government for 14 years, for the offer of any lessons to be learned, any opportunities to get together so you can teach me how to deal with it. I'd relish that opportunity, because I'm sure after 14 years you're well skilled at it. Thank you.
Councillor Dawson. Councillor Dawson.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I'm sorry to disappoint Councillor Ashton. If this motion had been crafted, as it's been claimed, I would not use that term, in terms that were less editorializing politically, a motion could have commanded the unanimous support of councillors. But I'm afraid that the political content means that it places we as a group in a position where we cannot support, at least I would not support the motion. Not in the terms that it's been prepared, and as I've said, without repeating unduly, Chair, it is very unfortunate that so many councillors have sought to make political hay out of an issue that should not have been treated in that way. The motion could have encapsulated its intent without any of that political editorializing, and therefore would not have made necessary the political debate that we've unfortunately been forced to go through, and was totally unnecessary if the motion had been prepared in a more circumspect terms. The amendment that was proposed was succinct and to the point, and set out the position of this council, therefore would have set it out more clearly. And as I say, I'm very disappointed that we've had to endure a political debate that should never have been necessary. We will not find a unanimity in this chamber when that's the results of motions that are brought forward.
We've got two more speakers, and then I'm going to call on Councillor McNally, who has a right to, who reserved his right as seconder of the motion. Councillor Horton, and then Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Again, it must be a very wet day out there, because I said the next time I agree with the Conservatives, it must be pouring down with rain. Well, I have to agree with him for once. And I didn't realise, I think it was Councillor Ashton that pointed out to me, that we are a very, very rural district council. I'm fortunate that my ward probably has 6, maybe 7% of people in the ward that have oil. All the rest have got solid fuel and electric and gas, and they're okay. But we are a very rural district. 36,000 vulnerable people. Now, I think when I was calculating about the increases of population and all the rest of with other districts, that's about 20% of our residents will be struggling. Because, as you say, they will have to find the money up front to fund their heating allowance, or they'll be starting cutting furniture up to keep the place warm. What a sad state of affairs. And I think, I'll be political, I think the Labour Party are feeling guilty, and that's why they put the amendment in. They feel guilty of what their leader, Mr. Sharman, has said and what he's done to our vulnerable people. So there was no way I could have supported the amendment, but I certainly would have pleasure supporting this motion, although I do believe part of it did come from the East Lindsey Independent Group.
Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Chairman. It is quite rare that we do have such a fracturing political debate, and it's quite proper that actually we do occasionally, taking Councillor Ashton's point, have a fracturing political debate. Politics is everything in life. Talking to someone in a shop is politics. You're expressing an opinion. You might have a different opinion. And I'm more than happy to support the motion. I think, and if the motion passes, I will be writing to the Chancellor. I will be writing to the leader of the Labour Party, sorry, the Labour government, should I say, Labour government, to say that this is an issue that is very damaging for our rural communities, especially our ageing communities. And I would be quite happy to have that letter countersigned by all the group leaders of this council as an act of conciliation in respect of making this non-political. So we will see where the motion goes, but I will be quite happy to have those signatures. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor McNally.
Thank you, Chairman.
Final speaker.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I did have quite a lengthy one, but I think actually I keep crossing it off because everyone said pretty much everything I was going to say it. I do have to say with what Labour said about supporting the motion. I mean, if you actually read from we therefore ask this council, there is nothing political whatsoever about that motion. The preamble might be, but actually the motion itself and the wording of it, that I can't see anything wrong with it at all. I think it's deeply disappointing to have to stand here to actually propose this motion and try and get the support of the full council. The abolishment of the winter fuel allowance will have far-reaching consequences for up to 40,000 residents in East Lindsey. And like everyone said, a lot of it will be, you know, especially the people on oil and not on mains gas. These are real members of the community. They have to decide whether to heat or not to heat. And that is going to be one difficult decision for them. It is truly shameful we are even in this position, but we will not stand by while pensioners are treated in this appalling way. And I thank you all for your support.
Okay, so it has been proposed and seconded as the motion set out in the agenda. Yep. Okay. Do you? Yeah, Councillor Macy, as councillor, as proposer, do you wish to say anything?
Yeah, I think I'd like to say thank you to colleagues from all around the chamber for your comments. It has been a really good debate and points made well throughout. The word choices has been used a lot throughout this, and yes, it's right, this is about choices, like the choice to settle with the union paymasters and to push the government's excessive approach to net zero, whilst removing funding for 36,000 pensioners in this East Lindsey area. I'm afraid this isn't right, and therefore, you know, I hope you actually support me on this motion. Thank you.
Okay, let's put it to the vote then. Those in favour of the motion?
Councillor Leyland's suggestion that there should be an all-party, if well, however many group leaders want to sign it. Is that part of the motion
No,
as well?
it isn't. No, I think we have to.
Is that an add-on? That's an add-on to do.
That perhaps when we've made the vote, that might be something that Councillor Leyland, with discretion from the proposer and seconder, can do. But I think we need to leave it as is and vote on it without any other amendments. It's on the paper here. Those in favour? Okay. And those against? Those who are abstaining? Abstain. Okay, that is carried. Thank you for that very lively debate. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Okay, we move on to consider the exclusion of public and press. I think at this stage it's because there are one or two items in audit and governance that are in committee, might be in committee, but I think if we can perhaps go to item 13, see whether there is any exempt minutes that need to be referred to, please let me know. But Councillor Ros Jackson, draft minutes of the Audit and Governance Committee.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, just going over these minutes. The committee considered the annual safeguarding report, and I would encourage all councillors to read the report and the policies on the audit papers. We scrutinised the procurement exemptions, the risk report, the Court 1 Treasury report, internal audits progress and the external auditors progress. Mazars have progressed on the 21-22 audit, but the 22-23 audit is likely to hit the backstop and be disclaimed. That's the government's deadline that they've imposed, which is 13th of December. This is a national issue that I'd like to just highlight that a lot of other councils are in the same sort of situation as we are with regard to audits. KPMG's 23-24 audit is progressing at the moment. And it's worth noting that the audit this year will cost more. I have responded to PSAA's consultation into that to help them to advocate for our sector. For those of you not on audit, PSAA is it's a procurement collective for the public sector audit area, and they try and get us the best price on audits, but there is a problem at the moment with the availability of enough auditors in the sector. So those are the draft minutes. I'd like to propose them, and thank you very much.
Just for noting, they are draft minutes. So can you also suggest, also the exempt minutes of audit and governance as well, I assume. Councillor Makinson's others.
Well, it doesn't actually say that I gave my apologies. But I did, because I was at health scrutiny for this council, and that's why Carleen stood in for me. But to fight with Councillor Macy for the urgent treatment centres, and so I had to be there and miss audit. So I certainly did give my apologies, and I would like that noting on the minutes, please.
Can we do that, please? I think it was missed off by mistake. Thank you
Don't
very
worry.
much. Okay, so the open and exempt minutes of audit and governance have been noted. Item 14 is the annual report of audit and governance. Councillor Jackson again.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to present you the audit and governance annual report. Just to take you through some of the points. Page 99 gives you an overview of the varied reports that we've received and that we scrutinise over the year. On page 100, you'll see that internal audit made findings on payroll reconciliation and procurement cards, leading to reports which also led to improvements. So that was an important part of our work this year. On page 101, we examined a number of governance items, including looking inwards at our own governance through self-assessment. So I'm ringing for some reason, getting a bit of feedback here. We carefully scrutinise the treasury management and the risk management, and these are regular items on our agenda. Audit and governance is really quite a technical committee, so we do commit to regular training. And I just finish by saying there's a list on page 102 of the training that we've gone over, and we commit to regular training as well as doing the annual training requirement that's now essential for our committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So again, this is an item for noting, but any comments on it? Councillor Leyland.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make a few comments. Obviously, we've just received the report from Councillor Jackson. I would like to pay particular compliments to the members of the committee for the way in which they have conducted their extensive business and with thoroughness and detail. This is no doubt that the committee, there is no doubt that the committee has a very high standard in its approach to championing good governance throughout 23-24, reviewing treasury, risk, audit and other key financial and governance related matters. And I'm pleased to hear that the training is undertaken, and certainly as an executive and leader of this council, I welcome the detailed work that is undertaken by the Audit and Governance Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Chair. Quite impressed. It's quite a heavy paper, this, and I do congratulate the team for doing it. However, it says here on page 100, 58 recommendations were made. Well, how many of those were taken up? It's okay having the recommendations, but if none of them was taken up or listened to, it's a bit pointless.
Any other questions? Councillor Jackson, can you answer that one if possible?
Thank you. In terms of the 58 recommendations, I'll have to get back to you on the number that have actually been taken up, but I do believe it is it's the majority in terms of the various different reports that have come through from internal audit. There are very few outstanding recommendations that haven't been actioned, and we do get a report as Audit and Governance Committee that comes back to us that tells us when there are large investigations, for example the payroll and the procurement cards, we do get that coming back to the committee, and a list of what's outstanding and what's not. And it is my understanding that in both of those areas, there's either very little that's still outstanding or nothing. So I'll get you an answer, a written answer in future. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I think I can only endorse that from from being on audit and governance, that we do follow those questions up, that internal audit of those issues that they've raised. So thank you for that question. I think that's item 14 dealt with. It's noted, yes. And now item 15 is the answer questions pursuant to council procedure rules, rule 11. We've got 19 questions here. Please remember that a supplementary question begins with a what or a how or a why. Please don't comment too much on the questions or the answers. So Councillor Watson, question 1 to Councillor Leyland, have you a supplementary? No, thank you very much. Councillor Jackson, question 2 to Councillor Marsh.
Thank you for the response, Councillor Marsh. No supplementary.
Thank you. Well done. Councillor Jackson, question 3 to Councillor Marsh.
Again, no supplementary. Thank you for this detailed response.
Question 4, Councillor Ellie Marsh to Councillor Leyland. Have you a supplementary?
Only to say that I was disappointed to learn that my value as a councillor was measured on my ability to attend meetings at Horncastle. As a councillor with young families, or elderly responsibilities, there must be a better way of measuring our ability as councillors.
Thank you. Is there a better way of measuring our attendance as councillors, Councillor Leyland?
Mr. Chairman, I fully recognise the sentiment of the question, and it is a fairly binary and arbitrary way of dealing with the matter. But constitutionally, it's something we might want to look at with our constitutional review group. But I do understand the sentiment and the concern that you have.
Thank you very much. Question 5, Councillor Ali Marsh to Councillor Martin Foster. Supplementary? He's not here.
No supplementary.
No supplementary. Okay, you could have had a written answer if you had asked a supplementary on that one. Question 6, Councillor Simpson to Councillor Ashton. Have you a supplementary? Question 7, Councillor Simpson to Councillor Ashton. Have you a supplementary?
No, Mr. Chair.
Question 8. Well, you're on question 8 now, Councillor Simpson. So to Councillor Ashton, a supplementary?
No. Thank you very much.
Question 9, Councillor Simpson to Councillor Leyland. Have you a supplementary?
Yes, I have actually. I mean, as I've said there, irrespective of any outcome of the conversation later on, I do feel that commitment could have been made, and it's something I will come back to. I don't really think that's a good enough reason. So thank you very much.
That wasn't a question. Question 10, Councillor Simpson to Councillor Leyland. Have you a supplementary?
No, there's no more to that. In fact, no.
Oh,
thank you very much.
Question 11, Councillor Horton to Councillor Marsh. Councillor Graham Marsh, have you a supplementary?
Yes, I think so. Thank you, Councillor Marsh, for your reply. Do I take it then until such time when the charity is formed that East Lindsey are paying the bills, or how is it working at the moment, please?
Thank you for the supplementary. To the best of my knowledge, and if I'm wrong, I'll check and I'll get back and write to you. But we are paying the London Sports Ground group monies to run the sports ground, but not handing over the full amount until the Charities Commission has made it into a charity. But we need to keep the sports ground running, and the best way to do that is to pay the money over to the Sports Association and let them continue running. But we are having oversight of all the bills, the costs. Whereabouts? Where's the pot at Louth? A pot? I thought you meant a pot of money.
Okay, you can discuss that out of the meeting if you
certainly
found more money. Question 12, councillor Horton to councillor Graham Marsh. Have your supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for your reply. Finding it difficult that we don't know how much so far the costings of preparing the application for the plastic pitches, but now the fact that the news of today looks like because of the environment's objections, it won't go ahead on Wood Lane. Will the portfolio holder be looking at any other sites, please?
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you very much for the supplementary. As I have mentioned both to yourself and other councillors, if anyone has got sites where they would like to consider a G2, 3 or 4 pitch to be built, if they would like to let me know, we will have a look at the feasibility and the funding. It's a matter of working with the FA, but if you're asking me if the money that we've got in the pot, if it doesn't go to Wood Lane, are we going to automatically give it somewhere else? The answer is no. We'll decide which is the best place to direct that funds to achieve the best outcome we can for the people of the district.
Question 13, councillor Horton to councillor Leyland. Have your supplementary?
I thank Councillor Leyland for his reply, but at this moment in time, I do not have a supplementary.
All right, thank you. Councillor, question 14, councillor Horton to councillor Graham Marsh again. Have your supplementary?
No, but I thank him for his reply. I did have, but I've forgotten it.
Question 15, councillor Makinson Sanders to councillor Grist. Have your supplementary?
Well, I feel really embarrassed to be political about this and say thank you very much indeed for your reply. And I'm agreeing with you and I look forward to your reply. I hope that's not too political now.
Right. No question there. Question 16, councillor Makinson Sanders to councillor Grist. Have your supplementary?
Well, yeah, but I can't think of how to start it with how, which, why, where, when, how, whatever. We do this is an issue that comes up at the Louth Transport Board, and so if I can work with councillor Grist and anybody else that is interested in trying to make the best of the Louth Industrial Estate, if they'd like to get in touch, but I'd like to work with councillor Grist to ensure this gets done and the estate looks as good as it ought to look. Thank you.
Come on, councillor Grist, answer that.
I think there's a question there, Chairman. Gives me a chance to stretch my legs anyway. Thank you for the supplementary, councillor Makinson Sanders. I'd be delighted to talk to you about this and work with you. I'm glad you mentioned the Transport Board, because I was going to mention that in my remarks. You obviously sit on that group, and they're well placed to try and move this issue forward. But I'm more than happy to work with you to see if we can find a solution. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Questions 17, councillor Makinson Sanders.
Well, if you don't know who they are, councillor Leyland, I'll tell you one, and the initials are M and V. So you might be able to guess who that was. And I'm quite happy to have a conversation with you about 0 hours contracts, because I am quite concerned there are an awful lot of staff working in our leisure provider who have 0 hours contracts.
Okay. No, you haven't really. Go on. Go on.
Chair,
Do what you can.
I can give not a proper answer to it. So the reality is that there are members of staff who are maybe at a certain stage in their career, might be looking at doing other roles as well, that actually quite welcome the 0 hour contracts. It might be hard to believe, but there are a number of people that do actually welcome them. So that I'm quite happy to have a detailed conversation about your non-question later on. That's great.
Okay, question 18, councillor Lennon to councillor Leyland. Have you a supplementary?
Yes, I do, of course. Given that Louth really wants to promote itself in every way it can, so thank you for the response, and I'm pleased to read that. Louth has always really wanted to put itself on the map, a bit like Skegness and the Embassy Centre. So I wondered if Councillor Leyland could help us as I flicked through Lincolnshire's answer to Hello Magazine, and I spotted somebody called Councillor Alex Hall. Perhaps she would come to Louth in this magazine here. And perhaps a signed copy maybe that we could fundraise for the centre of town.
Councillor Leyland.
I don't know how much money you would raise, but we're more than happy to step in with the rest of it. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and finally, question 19, Councillor Leonard to Councillor Leyland. Have you a supplementary?
Thank you for the response. I'll let him off the hook on this occasion.
Okay. So that's the end of questions. Quite quickly got through, dispatched. Date of next meeting is, the programme date for the next meeting of the council is 2 p.m. on the 11th of December 2024. Your Councillor March.
A point of order, please, Chairman. If I could just remind the members to sign the board before they leave.
All right, okay,
So
it's just
your,
not managed to get further round.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's that. We've now got item 17, but it's actually, again, we've got these issues with exclusion of public and press, but we can get through most of the item 18 and 19 without having to go into committee. I'd much prefer that public can hear this, but if we do stray into issues of ongoing legal issues and so on, we need to go into the committee. So we'll move on to item 18, which is the delivery of the ELDC temporary accommodation programme, and the appendix A is the appendix which is in question, which is exempt. So please bear that in mind when if you're referring and speaking to this. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very pleased to present this report regarding East Lindsey's temporary accommodation programme. As detailed in the report, we received Local Authority Housing Fund Round 2 funding in October 23, and members will remember that. With match funding from this council, 11 new homes were secured. We have 8 properties for households displaced through the conflict in Afghanistan, and we have 3 properties for general temporary accommodation for local families. All 11 properties are now occupied or matched with potential tenants. A further £1 million was agreed in October 23 to provide further temporary accommodation. An evidence review has taken place, and this has confirmed that 1-bed self-contained temporary accommodation is very much needed. As detailed on pages 105 and 106 of the report, the Local Authority Housing Fund Round 3 allows local authorities to weight their expression of interest towards general temporary accommodation, as opposed to further Afghan resettlement homes. In July 24, we received an offer of 1.067 million under Round 3. Based on current comparable cost data, in accepting this sum of 1.067 million, together with the council's already agreed £1 million, the council can deliver a further 12 properties. 9 properties at this time would be general temporary accommodation for local families. That'll be 8 1-bed properties and 1 family home, and 3 properties for Afghan households. These will be family households, and that's 12 properties in total. This is all detailed on the table at the bottom of pages 106 and the top of 107. As set out in the report on pages 106 and 108, a number of options have been explored for the delivery of 1-bedroom temporary accommodation. And as said, 1-bed accommodation is in great demand. So just for members' interest, on the housing register at this moment in time, there are approximately 1,700 applicants. Of that figure, around 820 of those applicants want 1-bedroom accommodation. It's very necessary at times to use bed and breakfast accommodation as temporary accommodation, but of course we try to use it sparingly, as 10 single people in bed and breakfast for 1 night costs us £700. So the 4 options detailed that you can see there in the report, option D is considered the most appropriate solution to meet the identified needs. This will involve the purchase and conversion of existing properties to provide 2 1-bed self-contained flats in each property. It is, however, recognised and detailed at 1.15 on page 108 that in Skegness, due to planning policy on flood risk, an alternative approach will be followed there, as you'll see set out. For the 3 resettlement properties to accommodate Afghan households, it's proposed to acquire new build properties, as we did in LAF Round 2. The rationale for these decisions are, of course, detailed in the report. Clearly, these additional properties will be an asset to the council, and this is really a tremendous opportunity, and those expected benefits are detailed in the report on pages 110 to 111. So in light of the Local Authority Housing Fund Round 3 funding offer, in September the Executive Board met and formally agreed the following: to take part in the Local Authority Housing Fund Round 3 programme, the approach to be adopted in respect to this, to how to spend the funds, to delegate authority to the Assistant Director for Growth and Development in conjunction with myself to finalise and agree the terms of the Memorandum of Understanding, and to recommend to full council that the 24-25 capital programme as set out in Appendix B is amended to reflect the LAF3 funds. So following approval executive, this report therefore seeks full council approval on the matter of amendments of the 24-25 capital programme as again set out, as I've said, set out in Appendix B. So the recommendation, Mr Chairman, is that the council approve the council's 24-25 capital programme. It's amended in accord to include the 1.067 million in local authority housing from round 3 funds, taking the council's total budget for temporary accommodation investment to 2,000,067. Mr Chairman, Matthew Hogan, Assistant Director for Strategic Growth and Development, is in the chamber with us this evening. He's been here the whole evening, Mr Chairman. I just want to thank Matthew and his team for the tremendous work that goes into making this programme the success it really has become. Let's remember these properties are benefiting the most vulnerable in our district. So, Mr Chairman, that's my report. Of course, I'm very happy to take any observations or answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gray. And is that seconded?
Yes, Chairman, happy to second and reserve my right to speak.
Okay, and are there any questions? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gray, for this report. I'm fully in support of it. I have just a couple of questions. First of all, what's our total need and also our total projected need for this kind of accommodation in the future? Because obviously we have a certain amount of temporary accommodation at the moment, and you know, is this going to be enough, or you know, how much more do we need? And also, really, when can we do more of this? And this question, I understand, will probably stray into the pink papers if you want to answer it. So I'm happy to have an answer written to me later rather than actually in the chamber. It won't affect the way that I intend to vote, but I would like to know when we can do more based on the numbers that we've got before us and the payback time. That would be a very useful piece of information. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Makinson-Sanders.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. When you're housing Afghans, is it possible that you can house them all reasonably close to each other? Because I do think it's pretty difficult for them to integrate into a community very successfully if they're outliers hither and thither. And so will you be considering that for a start? If you convert some of the property into 3 or 4 single units, does that then make it into a house of multiple occupation, which then complicates things? And if not, why not? I don't mean if you could explain why it doesn't become a house of multiple occupation. I'd just be interested with the answer, please.
Any further questions, comments? No. All right, Councillor Cunnington.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, can I just get a bit of an explanation as to how you're going to overcome the problems in Skegness with the 1-bedroom dwellings? Obviously, we can't build new ground floor flats or anything. Just wondering how you're going to overcome it. Are we going to be looking at purchasing existing properties above shops and things and converting them into new dwellings?
Okay, I thought that was in the report. I think Councillor Gray, if you'd like to clarify that particular one and the other issues as well.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. We will never have enough of this type of accommodation, unfortunately. As I think I said, 820 people on our waiting list want 1-bedroom accommodation. So unfortunately, as we could throw tens of millions at this, but unfortunately we will never have enough of that type of accommodation. But we are looking at doing other things. You will have heard me talk in this council chamber in the past about modular construction and modular design. Now, modular is not a quick process. There's different types of modular, and when you're looking at modular, you've got to look at the sites, the service connections, the flooding risk, the cleaning, the planning, etc. But we are getting there with that, and we could be bringing forward very soon some very interesting ideas for you to look at. I'm looking at 3 types of modular construction: solar huts, nap pads, and Amazing Grace. All of these have their benefits, etc. It could give some great cost benefits to this council because it's much cheaper to have modular now because there's a lot more modular coming online. So a report will very soon come to this council talking a lot more about modular, so that will increase our numbers of one-bed accommodation. Councillor Makinson Sanders, about Afghans living close to each other. I understand what you're saying, but Afghans are matched to a location of property and they choose that property. They're through a matching service, so they actually choose where they want to be. These properties will not be HMOs, there'll be two separate flats. The definition of a HMO is if you've got single bedrooms within a house, but those people living in those single bedrooms use the communal facilities, so they all use the same kitchen, they all use the same bathroom. These are two distinct separate flats, so not a HMO. Councillor Cunnington, yes, it is tricky with regard to building in Skegness because of the reason I said, but it is all detailed at point 1.15.
Okay, so we do have a recommendation that this council needs to approve, which is set out on page 104. The council approves that the council's 24-25 capital programme is amended to include the 1.067 in local authority housing fund round 3 funds, taking the council's total capital budget for temporary accommodation investment to £2.067 million. Those in favour of that? That is, anyone against or any abstentions? That is unanimous. Thank you very much for the support on that one. Well done, Councillor Gray. Thank you also to all the officers who have put in a lot of time preparing reports for our meeting this evening. There's Matthew Hogan was mentioned there, but there's a whole stream of officers that have prepared and supported the executive board members and others in their reports. So thank you very much for that. We've got one final item, which is the reports from scrutiny and policy panels. And again, this is in a two-part way because there is Appendix A1, which is exempt. This is really to note at this stage. You have freedom to comment, obviously, but the report goes to the executive board for their actions and comments. So Councillor Simpson first. Is there a point of order or anything, Councillor?
I did say that I was declaring, and I just wanted to make sure my absence was mentioned and commented because I'm actually leaving now.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm staying at the door so I can hear, but obviously.
Got you. All right, thank you. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The report of the scrutiny panel sets out on the first page the acknowledgements and thanks to the various, lists out all the acknowledgements and thanks to the various parties involved. So I won't bother, you know, I feel people having read a report will understand all of that and take all that on board. I'm hoping that everyone has read the report and observed what's in it and the issues and concerns that are within it. The recommendation of the panel in relation to the actual Kingfisher Caravan Park was to go with the option 2 appraisal and the exit plan options. And because the scrutiny panel at the end of it all would prefer a position of where the Kingfisher Caravan Park is retained, but are mindful of recognising commercial reality. They recognise that significant investment is needed to address the rundown infrastructure, and there is a reluctance to sell the family silver. I mean, as it sets out in the report, you know the reasons how we acquired it and its capacity to have earned this council an awful lot of money over the best part of 50 years, and certainly 45 of those years earned good money and with very little input in the way of actually maintaining the infrastructure. You know, I'm not going to go through this blow by blow. One is left sometimes with a great feeling of sadness, actually, that it's arrived at the position it has. You know, you almost feel it's worthy of, you know, of expressing concern by way of a vote of confidence, but that's probably for another time and another place. And what really worries me is that this will go sliding into the structure of the council, and it will disappear into the ether, and we will not actually see any changes. And you know, and for that alone, I am concerned. You know, it's an asset we required for no money. It's, well, as I say, if you've read the report, you draw your own conclusions. There is the part 2 of the report, which is on the pink paper. But anyway, what I would like to do is turn to the recommendations on the back on page number 139, and there are a set of overall conditions which related principally to the Invest East Lindsey, which was set up as a means of running initially Kingfisher in-house, and then morphed into this Invest East Lindsey with another portfolio for the housing development. And I did my questions to Councillor Lane early on, expressed the desire that recommendation 14, presentation to council about Invest East Lindsey with a business case to justify its future. And I think it's absolutely vital that the leader of the council comes to full council with a business case for continuing with Invest East Lindsey and how it's operated. And I think that's vital. It's all very well saying it will go to the overview committee and they'll go through it, but it's an asset which is owned by, you know, the council, the ratepayers, and the wider membership of this council needs to have an understanding of that business, what it has delivered so far and where it's going in the future. What are the constraints of that business? Because you have the business of the conflict of interest with commercial activity with a government activity. There's all sorts of conflicts of interest, just purely in the accounting systems, etc. Yes. However, I would like actually to move to the pink paper, where I would like to set out a couple of options, to discuss 2 options there. I would like, if possible, the chairman will give me a small extension.
I think we need to go into.
Indeed, you do so.
So I think we will deal with the and we will give you airtime on the pink paper.
Yes.
In a moment.
It's
when we've dealt with the open session.
Points.
Okay. So we've got a couple of speakers in open session, and Councillor Leyland and Councillor Mrs Martin and Councillor Makinson Saunders. We'll come back to you, Councillor Simpson. Okay, Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Chair. I acknowledge receipt of the report and the recommendations were made, and I think the comments that have been made about how this progresses. We have dealt with scrutiny panel reports in this council for noting. We as an executive board do take the recommendations of any scrutiny panel seriously, and we have a good track record of reaction to those and acting on those. This hasn't been discussed by the executive board yet in terms of the recommendations, and it will be passed on to our portfolio holder to look at, and also a discussion by the executive board as well. That's all I'd like to say at this moment, Chair, before we go into closed session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Councillor Mrs Martin, no doubt you'll explain to the whole of council about your tracker system and the way that you will be monitoring any of the decisions that
I think you just
made.
said it for me, actually, Mr Chairman. Yes.
Well rehearsed.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's what I did put my hand up to say really, but also to thank Councillor Simpson and the members of his panel, one at least of which I know is on the overview committee and will be very diligent in once we've got the response back from the executive board and put into the tracker. She'll be very diligent in checking that we are checking up on the recommendations and the responses that we've got. So it's just really to thank Councillor Simpson and the panel, and also to reassure him that there's no way this will disappear into the ether.
Thank you very much. Councillor Makinson Saunders.
There is a huge concern about how this Invest East Lindsey was set up, and I do think the leader and the executive board really do need to consider this. Good governance is vital, and correct governance is vital. And I was appalled as a member of this scrutiny committee to learn that how this company was set up. There were the requisite number of check signatories. There was the accounting system wasn't understood by anybody. Nobody knew how to operate that. And I could go on. And there were so many things. I really think if you're setting up a company of public money, those things must be done properly, diligently, and go through some form of tick list to ensure they're done right. And we failed the public because we didn't do it correctly, I'm afraid. And I think that really does need to be hammered home. And I think you need to look at that quite carefully.
Councillor Leonard.
Yeah, I think I've made the point before, but I'll make it again just in case. I think what Councillor Simpson was trying to say really was that you have a council essentially trying to run a business here. And I'm afraid the two don't go together, because councillors and council-minded people haven't had to worry about finding a payroll for their employees at the end of the week. They don't think in the same way that people with businesses think, because if I make mistakes and get it wrong, kapum, finished, that's it. Whereas other places, such as what we're dealing with, if necessary, could come back to the public purse. Unfortunately, I don't have access to the public purse, if only. But the point being that you've got people on who are not business people, and they don't look at a business and run it like a business, they run it like a council. And there lies the problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, a lot of us have run businesses and been self-employed for a lot of years, probably even before Councillor Leonard was born.
Okay, thank you.
God, that long.
Okay, can I just, at this stage, we're going to just note the first part of the recommendations that have come from the scrutiny committee. Can I just thank Councillor Simpson for chairing what was an extremely difficult, I think, and complex scrutiny topic to deal with. And you were ably supported by a number of members, one of whom was very sadly has passed away, which was Sid, who had the business acumen to help you along your way. Thank you very much for what you've done on that. The recommendations are on page 139. Are they noted, please? Okay, duly noted. They will go to the executive board. I'm going to read out the following, that under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the following item on the grounds that if they were present, there could be disclosed to them exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act as amended.